Hey guys, welcome back to Fire Pit TCGs. This is Hellfire. I'm starting something new on the channel here called This Week in WiXoss, where I'm going to try and keep up with WiXoss related news throughout the week, spoilers, new announcements, etc, etc. Most of this will probably just be covering spoilers and my thoughts on these spoilers as need be, but it will cover both English and Japanese side news. English side news, just because I think it's a good thing to have someone go over the spoilers, even though we know what's coming up since we're behind the Japanese side of the game. But I'll also be covering the Japanese side of the game's news, since eventually that will take into effect for us for English, or could potentially take effect for us in English. So I think it's worth mentioning this for the future of the game as well. And if you're interested in the Japanese side of the game, but the language barrier is a little bit rough to get over, I'm going to do my best to try and help you through that barrier. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with this week's episode. So what I'm going to be covering this week for the English side of the game, we're going to have coverage on P12 spoilers, so we're going to go over a couple of those that have came out this past week and up to today as well, and also go over the color change rule that was just recently announced. The Japanese side of the game did just have a product stream right before I recorded this video. We'll have new set announcements, new collab announcements, spoilers for the upcoming set WX24P1, which is, if you remember from the 10th anniversary recap video from a while back, it's the introduction of single Larig styled decks and abilities. Also be covering and going over the new keywords that have been introduced both in the past stream and the new keyword that was introduced into this stream, and some new card text changes for further clarification on some abilities throughout the game, and other exciting news. So let's go ahead and get started with English news. As you all are aware, as of April 19th, with the release of Dissonance Diva, we no longer have the color rule, which, for if you're not sure what the color rule is, the current way it is implemented is all cards in your main and Larig deck must match your starting level 0 Larigs. So, for example, if you have a red, green, and blue level 0 Larig on your field, you can only have red, green, blue, and colorless cards in your deck. You cannot, in your main and Larigs, it goes for pieces, assists, etc, etc. You cannot have any cards that are white or black in this scenario, and the same goes true if you're playing white, blue, black. You can't have any red or green cards. You can only have white, black, blue, and colorless. The new rule when Dissonance Diva comes out is you can have any colors across your main and Larig deck. Now, one thing that was forgotten in this announcement, and I'm not saying it isn't going to come to English, but I'll mention it anyways, currently on the Japanese side of the game, and it should take effect of the English side as well. Your Larigs cannot change color while they grow. Now, normally, this isn't an issue, but because we haven't had multiple colored Larigs in Diva, most have stuck to one color. However, with P12, we get the introduction of Tama, because Tama has a white Larig normally, but she gets a black version in Dissona P12. You can't go from white Tama to black Tama at any point in time when you're growing her, and the same holds true for Iona/Yuki. They are the same Larig typing, similar to how Alos and Code Purluke are. You can't go from Iona to Yuki, basically, since it's changing colors even though they're the same Larig typing. Right now, these are the only two Larig that this really applies to. Since they're the only ones with separate color rigs. There is a Larig in a future set, Divisions? Yeah, P15 Division Diva. I think that's the right set name. I can't remember. But P15, they introduce a green Carnival, and as we all know, currently in English, Carnival is red, so you can't go from red Carnival to green Carnival at any point in time when you're growing. This, I believe, is set in place because if you think about the use conditions of pieces, imagine you're playing white, blue, your opponent sees white, blue, black Larig, right? Tama Center, we'll say Tama Center here. You get Ultra Superheroed, or sorry, not white, blue, black, white, red, black. Since new color restrictions are out, you don't have to worry about running blue for Ush, Ultra Superheroes. So imagine getting full 3-moded Ush at your opponent's level 2, because they have white, red, and black. They grow to black Tama, and now they can death deck you, since they have 2 black Larigs on your field now. While that play is super fancy, it's not allowed since you can't change colors. Now, again, this hasn't been announced in English. They probably glossed over it because it was a My Use Room edition. In Japanese side of the game, their ban list is called My Use Room. We don't have that in English yet. So because we don't have that, they probably just like glossed over it, but it should be rectified or explained before, or hopefully before or by the time that P12 comes out. If not, best we can do is just email them like, hey, on the Japanese side of the game, it's supposed to be like this. Does this apply for English? If it doesn't apply for English, this would be fancy, but assume that it will apply. It just hasn't been explicitly announced yet. So with the color rule explained, we're going to move on to spoilers. I'm not covering over a lot of them, but the biggest one to cover is with P12, we see something similar to partner Signy. So these Signy have abilities if you're playing a specific Larig. So it's similar, it's kind of similar to Team Signy, if you remember from P01 with like Fenrir and Rose Quartz and Project PRJ Map and Lunling. Those are all like team locked. This kind of works like that because if we read Seek Love, Desona, Crystal Brilliance, she has an ability so long as you are playing Hanyo Tragic Flame Dance, which is the Larig that we see on this slide here. So going over these, Hanyo Tragic Flame Dance, auto at the beginning of your attack phase, while Signy in your field are Desona. You may pay a red and a colorless. If you do, a Signy on your field can get Assassin or Double Crush till end of turn. Action, once per turn, ditch 1 to draw 1 or enter charge 1. And Exceed 4 to just crush 1. So this card's really fancy and kind of like an aggro style in like first appearances. Because there do exist cards that we will probably go over at a later date that can benefit off of the assassin or the double crush. I think the first one that comes to mind, I can't remember if it is set or not, it's probably a future set, is a Lila Desona that can vanish an 8k or less when it crushes a cloth. So if you give it assassin, you can now vanish a Signy as well. This is a pretty fancy card. Right now, to me, screams super aggro. Because I didn't pay attention to Desona and JP, so I can't really give that much of other opinion on it. And then her partner Signy, Seek Love, Desona, Crystal Brilliance. Beginning of your attack phase, if all Signy on your field are Desona and your opponent has 2 or more enter, your opponent picks an enter and puts it to trash. So typical enter burn. And then her other auto, when this Signy crushes one of your opponent's life cloth, if Hanyo Tragic Flame Dance is on your field, the crushed card's life burst does not activate unless your opponent pays 1. So this is really fancy. If you're able to run a full enter burn strategy and swing with this first, because you can basically bait out a burst like this. So if you can fully clear your opponent's enters, so like go to the top is like a big one here, is a way to super guarantee it, or this plus another thing that can rip an enter out with like 1 or less. You basically get a free swing as if it's a blank burst, because your opponent's not going to have the ability to use that burst since they can't pay the cost, but it's also a way to tax your opponent for using the burst whenever this crushes something. So it's like they're not even getting any enter at all. And then we're going to move on to the next set of spoilers. And then we have Miko Miko with her partner Signy Miko Fan, Desona, Bacteria Queen. So Miko Miko 3 Mix Mix. Beginning of your attack phase, if you have 2 or more Desona, you choose one. Your opponent discards one, or your opponent may pay one. If they don't, they can only draw 1 card in total during their next draw phase. So it's basically like they're playing first at that point. Her enter is draw 2 unless your opponent discards 2. And exceed 4, bottom deck one of your opponent's Signy unless they pay 4. Once again, blue is showing what blue does best. You're not allowed to have nice things. Fitting with Kirun, thinking about the other the prior Yuka and Miko Miko centers, all having abilities that just mess with your opponent's resources. And the free hole removal is super nice. And if your opponent pays the 4, then welp, oops. It's a way to like burn their enter, so maybe they can't pay for their stops and stuff like that. Do they value the 1 damage versus not being able to grow their stops if you're able to full clear their board on that turn as well? And also just you either get the +2 or your opponent -2. Your opponent gets to pick on that one. So it's basically a lot of, do I want my opponent to have resources, or do I want to stop my opponent in their game plan? Her partner Signy, the beginning of your attack phase, if Miko Miko 3 Mix Mix is on your field, your opponent gains a Miko Miko defense squad. I will go over what that is in a moment. And then also auto, whenever this attacks, you choose one of the following. Your opponent discards a card, or if you have 3 or more cards in your hand than your opponent, this Signy gains Shadow Signy until the end of your opponent's next end phase. So if your opponent doesn't have a hand, this can't be targeted by Signy, basically. If your opponent has a hand, they don't anymore. Especially when you pair it into Miko Miko Defense Squad. So Miko Miko Defense Squad hasn't been spoiled yet, but what it does is auto, at the end of your turn, discard 1 card from your hand if you do remove this token. Yes, that sounds weird. So the Miko Miko Bodyguard is owned by the player who gets the token, and the ability is also activated by the player, or the ability activated is owned by the player who created the token. So technically it is your ability, but it resolves on the opponent's turn. So it's not like Hastalisk, for example, where it's the Umer player's turn that it procs. No, the Miko Miko Bodyguard activates on the opponent's end of turn. So it's another way to tax their hand even more, because you can just rip 2 cards out with these if you have 2 Miko Miko Bodyguards. And if your opponent can't pay for these, they just stay. They'll continue to stack up, and they'll eventually start falling off when your opponent has cards they can discard. Since they only go away if you are able to discard. And it's not remember, it is not a may. You have to discard a card at the end of the turn if you have one of these on your field. And that's about it, what we got for the English side of the game. So we're now going to move on to the Japanese side news. So first off, we're going to talk about the card text changes. Now, what I have on screen right now are reprints of some SRs that are in the new starter decks that are coming out for this new set. You'll see there's Alos Pyroluke Memoria, Pyroluke Apex Memoria, Remember Memoria, and Sela. And if you look at Alos Pyroluke, Remember, and Sela, they have these funny little boxes next to their abilities that weren't there on their original printings, if you can remember. So what these are is these will have, like, some abilities are rewritten to explain when the abilities are active or when they will activate. So if you see a blue box, that is specifically your turn. If you see a red box, it is your opponent's turn. So like Alos, her once per turn ability of whenever you discard a Signy, play it to the field, then target one of your opponent's Signy to -2k and freeze it, that will only activate on your turn. And I believe the translation of this no longer has the during your turn text. It just says when a Signy is discarded, basically, since it is a during your turn effect. And then remember, her first ability can't use actions unless you pay. Opponent can't use actions unless they pay 1. That's an opponent's turn ability. And then the Sela, when a Signy attacks, choose a Signy on your opponent's field, and that Signy loses all of its abilities. Like you see, both those have that red box, so that means they're only active during your opponent's turn. Little nice quality of life updates, and helps better explain some cards, since you can tell that these abilities only will activate on your turn. It makes them a little less wordy too. And speaking of other spoilers, we do have some spoilers for the new WX-EX set. So in this, or EX, excuse me, WX-24 set. So if we remember that we're basically getting single rig deck versions of Tama, Yuzuki, Purluke, Midoriko. Tama, Hanayo, Purluke, Midoriko, and Urith. So we saw some of Tama's new booster cards in this set. So here's her level 3. Tama Yorihime Days Miko. When this attacks, if there is a armed Signy on your field, you may discard 1 card from your hand and pay 1 white. If you do, you up this, and this Lurig loses its abilities until end of turn. Cheaper restand cost compared to her older counterpart, which you need a rest 2 Signy on top of that. So you can actually attack with all your stuff and still get your abilities off, so long as you have an armed Signy on your field. Her once per game, this turn, when a Signy vanishes a Signy by battle on your field, you up that Signy, and then that Signy loses its abilities until end of turn. So it's basically a free restand for your Signy as well. So you can still push a full 5 damage off of her once per game turn if your opponent has no field for anything. So Tama's still doing what Tama does best, and it's hitting you in the face. We also saw the spoiler for her partner Signy in the set, Energy Full Armed. So const, while there is a Tama Yorihime Days Miko on your field, this Signy gets 3k and shoot. When the Signy vanishes a Signy by battle, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 armed, add it to hand or enter zone, then the rest go on the bottom in any order. Shoot is a new keyword introduced that is basically the following. If this Signy would vanish a Signy on your opponent's field through battle, put it into its owner's trash instead of the enter zone. Now, this works significantly different than card text that we're familiar with, like Chandelier. Because Chandelier specifically doesn't care how it vanishes, as long as it vanishes the Signy. So, for example, let's say we give Chandelier an ability to, on attack, vanish the Signy in front of this. Chandelier would send that to the trash, but if Chandelier had Shoot, for example, that wouldn't work here. That Signy would go to the enter zone. So Shoot specifically has to be done by battle. So don't confuse it with stuff like Chandelier or Musica Memoria not caring how the Signy in front of it gets vanished. And then last we see a release of, or we see one of Tama's arts, Shining Clock, attack phase use timing. Choose one of your opponent's choose a Lurig on your opponent's field, and it gets cannot attack until end of turn. And then additionally, if you have Recollect 4, which if you remember from the last stream, Recollect is a keyword that triggers if you have a specific amount of arts in your Lurig trash. So if you have 4+ arts in your Lurig trash, when you use this art, additionally, you can target a Signy on your opponent's field, and it loses all abilities until end of turn. Standard Lurig stops Dash Hirana, because that's still prevalent right now in both languages, in my opinion. I was like, oh, cool, you got 4 damage stacked. No, you don't. And by the way, this thing you have that has double crush? No, it doesn't. So all in all, like, it's effectively it can be a 2-stop or like some weird form of a 2-stop for 1 enter, which is really strong. So with spoilers out of the way, we're going to go into set announcements. So at the beginning of the product stream, before I recorded this video, we were shown this lovely slide. Like, what if... It seemed like a what if selectors from the anime became Lurig or like Memoria Signy, for example. So on the slide here, if you've seen the anime, these should be familiar, but I'll go over them anyways. Otherwise, if you haven't seen the anime, go watch it, please. Anyways, so we have from left to right, we have Akira, which is Pure Luke's selector, Yuzuki, which is Hanayo's selector in the anime, Hitoe, Midoriko's selector, and Chiori, which is Eldora. So, like, these are cool arts, right? Well, turns out they're actually going to become Lurigs in the second booster of WX24. Loth Selector. Yes, it says Loth Selector. It's not a weird way of saying Selector 10th. It's Selector Loth. Which is, I guess, a really weird way of, like, doing 10th without it being 10th. It's, Anyways, Loth Selector, we are seeing the appearance of, from left to right, Rue, Yuzuki, Akira, Hitoe, and Iona as Lurigs, which... 3 new Lurigs, basically, Rue, Akira, and Hitoe, but Yuzuki and Iona basically getting buffs, because if we go to this next slide, we see that their typings are the same as Yuzuki and Iona. So, direct buffs for those specific centers, whereas Rue, Akira, and Hitoe are brand new. So this slide covers what classes they'll be working with as a single Lurig deck. So Rue will be using Angels and Demons, Yuzuki will be on Dragons, Akira will be Amusers, Hitoe will be using Plant Signy, and Iona is on Labyrinth. Unaware of what any of their abilities do right now, but we do see that some of them, like Through the Blur, have some once per game, so it'd be really interesting to see what these are when we get closer to their spoiler season, which will be a little bit after P1 or WX24 P1 comes out. Here's some view of their arts for the set. So these are more like their signature arts, I would assume. And see, they also will have the recollectability. No, I don't know what that says at the bottom. My Japanese isn't that good. But we see, like, Innocent Defense. That one I can read. Lock On for Akira. The other ones I can't read, sorry. I really like Yuzuki's aesthetic in this. Like, if people know me, I don't play red. Like, most of the colors I play is like white, blue, and black. Sometimes I play green if I'm bored, but I don't ever play red. This Yuzuki art's getting me to want to play red. So these, we've also got to see a glimpse of their URs for this set, and I gotta say, I want that Ruko. I want both of those Rukos. Sorry, Tamanon, if you're watching this, you might have some contention for getting either of these, because they are drop-dead gorgeous. Like, I love, like, the yin-yang energy of the Innocent Defense going on for Rue's art, and I like it over the other one, or her level 3 art, but both are amazing. Like, the details in the dress for the Rue is awesome because you see all of the like the inner symbols like black, blue, green, red, and white, and the colorless even. All in all, the art's like super beautiful. And as we know with these WX24 sets, they are going to continue to support Diva Larig, so we still get pieces, we still get assists. Like we have this main phase and attack phase piece and assist. Don't know what their abilities are quite yet. So we'll get a new Pierluke assist. Nice. I'm okay with this. Looks like she has like 2 separate abilities, so probably just like a 2-stop or something, maybe. I couldn't tell you what this piece does. My eyesight's not good enough to read through the blurs. But it is still nice to see that they are going to support Diva strategies or team strategies continuing on. And just like 24P1, 24P2 will also have full art cards. So we've got Iona, we've got a Umar Tawil? No, that's Tama and Iona. Or that's a Tama and Iona rig. I think that's Mayu? I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with All-Star to know this. And then we have Tawil as well. A lot of these cards, I think except for the Tawil, were AS playable. These probably won't be coming to English, but it's definitely something to look forward to if you play All-Star, because like just full art texts or textless full arts, these look amazing. They're probably going to look even better when you actually get the foiling and stuff on them. And as with the last set, this set also has serials. So here we have a Rue serial 110 signed by her voice actor. So just like I think the Tama from last set, we'll have 10 of this serial available, probably reprinted without the serial text if the set gets reprinted. It's nice to see the continuation of serials, and it's still weird seeing Rue as a Larig now. So, but all in all, it's super exciting. Now, I know some of you guys are thinking, like, well, Hellfire, we saw Chiori earlier. Why wasn't she in the P2 set? Well, she is going to be coming out in P3. That will be in autumn sometime this year, so we'll be getting spoilers to that closer to about August, September maybe, covering all of that and what the other Larig that will be with her. And then in winter, we will get a mysterious, no one knows what's in here yet, booster, but this will be P4, which will be sometime winter. So recapping all of that, here's the Japanese release schedule for now. We have the TDs coming out later in late April, July 6th for P2, which introduces the selectors as Larigs for the first time if they're not Yuzuki or Iona. Fall for P3 and winter for P4, and 2025 is to be continued. And now on to tournament promos. So we did see some All-Star love. The All-Star promo for May is Mendako Guillotine. If you're familiar with this card, it was a Miji Sanji collab for Key Series that is getting reprinted with Donna and Guzuko on the art now, and I knew there was a reason I was collecting a decent amount of VUT points. I need this card. If anybody watching this video ends up with this card, hook a brother up. I have a mighty need. I don't think I'm going to be able to afford all the copies, though, but I have a mighty need for at least one copy of this card. Art's beautiful. Mendako itself is very much a All-Star staple. If you are familiar with the All-Star format. If you are not, This won't be Diva legal, but I'll read the card effects anyways. So you get to choose 2 of the following 5 abilities. This card has 5. Yes, this card has 5 abilities. Option 1, this turn your opponent cannot use spells. Option 2, until end of turn, 1 Signia on your opponent's field loses all abilities. Option 3, exclude up to 3 cards in your opponent's trash from the game. Option 4, put 1 Signia on your opponent's field into the trash, you discard 2. And option 5, put the top 2 cards of your deck into your trash, then add up to 2 white and or black Signy from your trash to your hand. So you can only add 2 there. It's not like, oh, you add 2 white, 2 black. And the use timings of this is main phase, attack phase, or spell cut in with a use cost of at least 2 white or black in some combination. Like, this card is super powerful in All-Star. It getting a promo version hurts my wallet, but it's nice to not look at VTubers all the time, especially with the meta that we just recently had in JP with Anj. As for parties for Diva, we've got the next 2 months of promos here. So for the month of May, you can win Tama versions of Over Pursuit. The month of June, players in Japan can win Pure Luke versions of Trouble. Don't ask me what the center cards are. Those are new. I like, these don't exist currently, even in JP Diva. The only thing I know about the green card that is on the left and the center here is when it gets targeted, you get to enter charge 1. Or once per turn, when it gets targeted by an opponent's effect, you get to enter charge 1. And then you get normal versions of that through May and June. And there's also a slew of other promos that you can get that you see at the bottom of the right-hand side. So in order, what we see here is Lalaru Desona, Hyakoko, Hamster, Terra Beast, Typhon, Vasago, I know I swapped the order of those, sorry, Mikamune, Deuce Memoria, Appetite, Eolite, and F-Light. So these will be getting 10th anniversary promos made of them with, you can see in the image barely, there's like the little 10th, WiXoss 10th stamp. And continuing on with promos, the Selector Point series promos for the period of May to August is Dia Bride and Curson. This isn't a thing that we have in English. Selector points are a thing in Japan which you get by showing up and also placing at events, and if you get enough points through the course of a season, you get these promos. Fun fact that these 2 promos actually work with each other. So Dia Bride's enter of discarding a card to look at to add 1, discard the other, triggers Curson. Because when you're looking at the cards, they're still considered part of your deck. Until you discard the one you don't pick off a Dia Bride, which will trigger Curson's auto whenever a card is put from your deck to the trash by any effect. All Signia on your opponent's field lose all of their abilities. So, fun that they put these 2 together as selector points since they work together, but the art's gorgeous. Like, I can't be mad at these arts, like, they're so beautiful. I hope we're probably going to get these in English. We got the last set of selector point promos, like the Osagitsune and Baphomet were selector points at one point. So we'll probably get these in English at some point. When? Who knows? But I know somebody who will probably want that Curson. So definitely look forward to these. More promos. So there is a Prepara collab where Prepara is getting a single arts. That's it. Like, it's not a booster. It's not like a premium set. It's not like a series of promos. They just get an art. That's it. That's it. Don't know how else to say it. Continuing on with collab promos, we do have another set of collab promos with High Speed et Toi. So this collab was announced last year at some time, I believe. And if anybody has seen this anime, you'll remember that one of the race cars had either the Takaratomi or the WiXoss logo on one of the race cars. So all we have here are the just some servant promos of some of the racers and a limit upper, which if you're not familiar with limit upper, it is a special token that you can only get if you have one Larig and by using a specific arts that increases your limit by 2 while this is on the field. And yes, that is a dude on the card. We have dudes in WiXoss. And speaking of dudes, this isn't April Fool's now, guys. So they are coming out. They announced that they're coming out with the gender bend version of promos that they've made in the past. Now, on the screen, we have male versions of the original Arkwin, Adamantia, Raflele, and Parthenon, not the Diva one. So we have male versions of the Signy coming out in promo packs in April, 1 per pack. We don't know how many of these yet, but these are coming out supposedly. I'm a little bit skeptical because this was originally an April Fool's joke, and well, as of recording, tomorrow is April Fool's. So I'm a little wary of this. One thing to note, that these cards are not legal for tournament play. It was specifically mentioned on in the product sheet that these are not legal for tournament play. So I have a feeling that this might be an April Fool's joke, but it'd be super interesting to see these come out on the market. So if you want male versions of some Signy, this is the promo pack for you. Or if you just want to meme and throw them in your kitchen table deck, since, you know, these aren't legal for tournament play. But with that, folks, that wraps it up for this week in WiXoss. As always, thank you for watching or listening if you are not able to pay attention to the screen at this time. And I will catch you all next week for next week's This Week in WiXoss. Again, thank you for watching and listening.